And that's the thing every day it comes down to, like, right? Like everything is a choice. Like
Yeah.
I think I wrote something about this a couple weeks ago that it's just like we think, it was one of my lessons from 2023 is that like happiness is within our control. Like we think so many things are outside of our control and we're like, we pick our partner and we pick our jobs and we pick all these things that seem, like you said, permanent because they're so systemically rooted in us. But it's like we can change them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't, and you should change them if they're not serving you
Yeah.
in a positive way, so.
We're good? Okay. Do we like how we look?
Yeah, I'm like,
I literally
it's hard
feel
to
like
see, but I'm like, I think.
I'm part of a talk show.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. Talking about perfectionism.
Yeah.
Welcome to Everybody Hates LA. We are back. We have a new look and feel. We have, new vibes coming in. And if you remember, we had Empower Conference on a few months ago, and they had their visualization empowerment workshop where we made vision boards, we met each other, and I just really vibed with you. And I'm
Me
so
too.
excited you're coming in here.
I'm super excited to be here. We just connected immediately.
Yeah.
It was great.
And it's funny because, and I know we've talked about this quite extensively, but you go through life and a lot of people are very unconscious, right? So they're going grocery shopping, they're going on a walk or whatever, and they're just dealing with their everyday madness, right? But sometimes you meet people who are like, oh, you're cool.
Totally.
Or wait, like you think about happiness, you think about peace, you think about balance. Like, what's your take on that?
Totally. It comes up in the most unexpected ways with the most unexpected people that you never realize.
Yeah.
And then you say, oh, that's how I feel. Oh, that's how I feel. And then you just talk and you chat and you just feel so much more fulfilled because you're just connecting with someone on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so amazing.
It's great.
So tell me, what does happiness mean to you?
Oh, so I mean, that's the age-old question, right? Like everybody wants to know what it means. I think for me, it's really more rooted in like an Eastern philosophy of contentment, compassion, and connection. And I think like, it's really easy for us to think happiness is like this end goal and put so much pressure on what it means. But really, it's not an emotion. It's more of it's when all of your other emotions are in balance with each other, right? Like if you are angry or if you are sad and you're frustrated or you're anxious, like you don't have room to be happy. And happiness is more of a mindset. It's more of like a journey rather than it being this one output. And I think it really depends, like for us, I think in our Western world and especially like living in California, we place a lot of value on externalities and not enough value on going internal and just being content with what you have, being content with just having enough because it's human nature. Like you get something, you want more. You get a nice car, you want a bigger house. You get a bigger house, you want to remodel it. You got to remodel, you want to go on a luxury vacation. It just never stops. And so just being happy and I think that is where true gratitude truly emanates from, is when you have that sense of, this is good enough. I'm happy with what I have.
It's the being. I mean, I'm just totally taken aback and just taking this in because that's beautiful, right? As somebody that's everything I feel like I did in my life was just to get happy.
Right.
And nothing was ever good enough,
Exactly.
right? And especially in California and Los Angeles where you come here and you're like, you have the sunshine and you're doing all these cool things and it's entertainment and you're creating culture. But people aren't happy. And they're not happy because they're getting the expensive car and then have no money.
Exactly.
They're getting the expensive apartment, but then aren't happy with their relationships around them or what have you, right?
Totally.
They're not just happy in the being and the becoming.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Because it's like, I think like it's hard to place like any sort of blame or anything on one thing. But, when you look around us, like my friends always like laugh with me because my whole like tagline for life is just like, life is just marketing. Like it's just marketing. Everybody is trying to market and sell you something. And unless you really know what you want and who you are and what matters to you, what your values are, you're not going to be happy with all of these external things because you are searching for something that you are finding outside when you really need to find something within you.
Ooh, you have to validate yourself though to even, like you have to have a sense of self almost to even get to that point, right?
Absolutely. Like, and I think that's where like, I think the first step to that is having that self-awareness and having true self-awareness to say, this is what I care about. And to me, I think that comes from a sense of values. Like, what do you value in your life? What do you care about? Because if you go through this exercise and figure out, well, I like this on the surface, but really maybe it's just something different.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at yourself in a way where your actions are automatically going to align with what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about this briefly, but there's like this value sort exercise that I love. And it's just, you can go online and you can go to like value sort, and they give you a list of all these different values, and you typically know what they mean, like forgiveness, empathy, compassion, resilience, strength. And you sort them, and you, through a process of deduction, you go through them and eliminate them from 20 to 10 to 5. And when you
Wow.
realize what those 5 that you're left with, you will realize that you're automatically doing those things. You are already channeling and manifesting those values into your actions, because that is what you care about at the end of the day. And that's who you are at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's almost like looking around your home, right? Or your environment.
Exactly.
And what does this represent? Does
Exact-
this represent me? Or
Totally.
does this represent who I want to be, right?
Exactly. Like, I love the home analogy because I say that so many times. And it seems very natural to say, well, yeah, of course, a home is a representation of yourself. But if you truly look at it, you'll say, okay, do they have a lot of stuff? Do they have books? Do they have like games? Do they have like pictures? Like, it'll be able to paint a picture of who that family is or who you are and what that says about you.
Yeah. How did you realize this?
Values is something like I just grew up with. I was really, really lucky that I grew up in a family where that was all we talked about, like living your values. And kind of, my dad was a really strong component. We always joke, my brother and I, that my dad taught us everything that was inward, and my mom taught us everything that was outward. And
My heart. Stop. I can't take it.
like, it was like she taught us how to like have consideration for other people, how to show kindness, how to be a good person, and like how to learn, how to educate yourself, how to do all these things. And my dad took a very like philosophical, spiritual approach where he showed us how to do everything internally. Like, who are you? How do you, relate to the rest of the world? And all of those things are semi-related, the internal and outward. But, a lot of what I saw was modeled by them, which was just like, we didn't place a lot of value on stuff. It was a lot about spending time with our family and just building connections with each member of our family and just respecting each other. And my dad has a 5 like recipe for success, 5 elements of recipe for success for any relationship, which is just like, two-way communication, trust, mutual respect, freedom from ego, so no pride, and sacrifice. And he's like, you do any of those things, any type of partnership or relationship will succeed.
Wow.
And so that had obviously a huge impact on my life, because I feel very fortunate that I was just given this head start to understand who I was at a very early age.
Yeah. I mean, I'm literally in my head, I'm like, where have you been all of my life, right? Because I am just now realizing all of these things. And I would
Yeah.
say, like, a lot of my friendships and a lot of the conversations I've been having the last few years, I'm like, oh, what is it like to have values, right? What are my values? So if I
Right.
had to commit to something, right? I think there's a big fear of commitment, right? What kind of relationships do I want? And how do I build more intimate relationships? How do I deepen them around me? Because that sense of community isn't instilled in everybody, right?
Totally. And it's really important. Like, they had this, there was like an age-old Harvard study that they did about what drives happiness over a course of, I think, like, 70 years. They followed these young college men till they were in their elder years. And the number one thing was relationships. It was just building connection with people. And I think so much of that is, at least for me, like, that's where I derive a ton of my happiness, is spending quality time with my friends and my family and who I define to be family. And I think there's a huge loss that is developing from that, because we are so addicted to our technology, and we're just moving from living in our physical world with this community into living into a more virtual world. And so those things, those like nuances and those like interactions, even small ones, are going away because we're living. I read one of my books that I loved reading about on parenting was called Hunt, Gather, Parent. And it's talking about the differences between parenting in the US versus parenting around the world and how it's so different. And they said this thing that was so fascinating is that like in America or the Western world, we live in these boxes. Like we just live in boxes. Like we're in our cars all the time. We're in our houses all the time. We're just live in these silos and we're isolated versus like being kind of like more communal and just living in a more global world.
Yeah, well, they even talk about like in Germany, for example, like you have a whole village that raises your kid,
Totally.
right? Versus in America, you are, it's a very independent culture. Like every person's supposed to be independent. You're supposed to make your own success and be your own person and have distance with your neighbor.
Exactly.
Instead of driving that community where all the kids are playing in the neighborhood and they're all at one house that has the trampoline or they're all having a barbecue or watching a movie or something. It does make a huge difference in the way that you're connecting.
Absolutely. Like 100% because you need that oxytocin. You need that, like you don't get oxytocin from like a like on a post. You know, you get dopamine and it's rewarding a different part of your brain that I think is like wanting to drive more of that dopamine of saying, I got attention or I got something that likes me instead of you yourself being like, I don't care if I get 2 likes or if I get 3,000 or 2 million likes.
Yes.
I'm happy with the thing that I'm putting out.
Yes.
And that's all that matters.
You might get attention, but do you like yourself?
Exactly.
Right? What do you value? Why are you posting it? Why are you doing different things? I hid a bunch of like all of my likes and stuff because I'm like, you know what? If I keep looking at what people like and what they resonate with, I will never truly honor myself in the way that I need to. And if it makes me happy, I'm okay with that.
Well, exactly. And I think that's like a big part of that self-awareness that you need in order to really figure it out. Because I think we can always do these things on autopilot. We're constantly like, oh, we'll just do this. I'm doing this. Everyone's like getting a trainer. Everyone's, you know, getting Botox. Everyone's getting this. And it's really asking yourself, like, why are you doing that? You know, what's the why? And if you keep, for me, it's like having a constant inner monologue of talking to myself for every action that I'm doing, which might be like, it's like obsessive, but more like, oh, why did I do that? Or why, oh, I got joy from this. Or, you know, was this a mistake? Or how could I have shown up better? And it's that mindfulness as a practice that you start to build as a skill when you're talking to yourself and kind of analyzing why you're doing things and whether you're doing them for you or whether you're doing them for society.
Wow, that's powerful. How did you learn? Because you grew up a specific way, right? Not everybody grows up, right? That has parents like, oh, like, let's be self-aware. And what are you doing? And how do you coexist with other people? Was it hard for you to coexist with people that didn't live that way? Like, how did you even realize that people are like, oh, wait, you don't have that inner monologue or you don't have a value set?
Yeah. I mean, I think I did not realize that the world, I was so naive and slow that I just, an idyllic rather, that a naive, like so many words come to mind because I just thought that this is how everybody operated. I was like, oh, and I went to a small school that was like Christian based. So those same values were taught there. And I was really like, I was the only Indian girl out of a sea of Caucasians. And so I very quickly learned I was different and that I had to figure out how to respond to that. But I think for me, my community was so insulated and it was so sheltered that this is just what I thought was natural. And it was a process for me to like learn how to be empathetic and understand other people's perspectives of, wow, you didn't grow up that way and you have a different value set. And it's still, I think, hard for me when people don't place those foundational values of like trust and empathy and respect at the forefront. And I'm a lawyer and I'm like very like politically charged. So I do get, my husband says passionate about a lot of about a lot of issues, especially when people don't agree with me. But it's because like I care so much and I just, you know, I have tried to learn that I've gone from a big like black and white model to a very much gray model. And I think the last few years have really shaped that when I understand people around me and I can see their struggles and realize that everybody is different and everybody, just like happiness, right? Everybody has their own level that they start on and they start with. And it's just, there's no end goal. There's a constant journey because things are always happening. They're always
Yeah.
happening. You know, life is one big roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways, it goes backwards, it goes forwards. It's like the squiggly line of Jackson Pollock's like
Yeah.
paintings of all over the place. And you have to kind of figure out how to navigate yourself throughout all of these different obstacles and pitfalls
Yeah.
and adversity.
And it's going to keep going. And that's the beautiful part of it. I had a boss actually last year. So it's funny you mention it. I don't remember what the issue was, but I had an issue and I was really upset. And I was like, this one person isn't doing anything. And oh my gosh,
Yeah.
and this is how it's supposed to go
Yeah.
and whatnot. And he said to me, he was like, this person lives in a world that's either black or white. And that's okay. Your world's gray.
Totally.
You might be darker gray, and then tomorrow you might be in a light gray, but he was like, you get to move around and decide where you want to be, and that's the beauty of it. So if they're being totally black or totally white, just adjust to it. You don't have to be that same color.
Absolutely.
But just be flexible.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing out of that too is that, like, for me, you have to have acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of it, is like, not just tolerance, not just like, oh, I can tolerate you. It's actually truly accepting people for what they are and for who they are based on the experiences. And when you do that and you truly say like, okay, I accept you for who you are. I don't have to be that way, but that is who you are. Then it releases this sense of frustration or anger or whatever it is you're feeling in that same way.
Yeah. Do you think people can be flexible and adjust their values over time, or do you think that they are rooted in a person's foundation?
That's a really good question. I was just talking about this with someone like last night, and it was like the question of like whether people can change or not, right? And I think everybody has the potential to change, and you definitely, I think, can change your values. I mean, your values of what you felt and what you believed when you were 20 are so different than what you believe at 40 or at 60. And it really depends on the life that you want and what you care about, right? And I think like as long as you are like living a life that's true to you and that's authentic to you in those moments, like of course you change your values, you know, they do change like naturally. And I think life in general just changes. Like our whole environment changes and is just a constant evolution. And so we have to move along with it. And I read this, one of the books that I read was called Essentialism. And it was talking about, the author was saying how in our lifetime, like technology, e-commerce, like all these things, AI, those are not going to be the biggest things of our century. It's actually going to be how you're able to distill down what your priorities are in the sea of chaos.
Wow.
It's going to be how you choose to filter your priorities based off of how you want to live your life and not get caught up in the distractions.
Oh, that's interesting, right? Because we have so much information around us all of the time. We're fed so many things, right? Whether it's social media or it's a billboard or an article or it's another journalist or a movie or all of these different things, right? But what do you pay attention to?
Right.
And what do you look at and how do you check your biases, right?
Totally.
And then two, what do you even want to bring into your home or your life or your brain or your mind?
Yeah. And that I think
Wow.
that has to and that's where I think like the values comes in, because you have to be very intentional about what you believe and what you choose to spend your time on, because in this day and age, we don't, everybody's comment is, I'm so busy and I have no time, which is really accurate. We aren't. We're constantly, our calendars are full every day. You know, and as a parent, you're constantly running around. You have no time for yourself, let alone trying to like make time to connect with your partner and like take care of your parents and like check in with other people and your friends and be all these different roles, right? So you really have to be intentional about who you are first and then what you want to do at that time. And I think that relates back to happiness too, because we talked about this concept of time affluence, where you know, time affluence is this notion that you're spending more of your time having purpose and having joy and being like in this state of contentment versus time deficit, where you're spending most of your time stressed or exhausted or burned out or just around negative energy. And I think happiness really is finding that balance between both of those because they're both going to coexist.
Yeah.
It's figuring out which one you're going to choose to take over.
Yeah. Well, and even resetting your day, right? So being able to sit down and breathe and reset when you're having a bad day, or you had maybe an argument with your partner or something happened, or even having, this is a bigger moment, but an aha moment of, I'm in the wrong career and something needs to change.
Totally. And that all I think it takes a lot of mindfulness. And that mindfulness is not just something that we talk about all these things all the time. We talk about empathy and mindfulness and compassion and resilience. But I think sometimes it's really hard for people to understand like what those mean in a tactical sense. Like, how do you do that? And I think, one of the reasons like we created the app, like my husband created this app Happy, was really to drive more accountability for people to create happiness habits every day. And then two, to also remind them that you're in control of it. It's not anybody else's fault because you're feeling this way. You have the power to change what you want. And if you aren't doing what you want to change, something's holding you back, and it's your job to figure out what that is if you truly want to experience that contentment or that happiness.
Yeah. So somebody might be listening or watching, hey, and they're like, yeah, sure. We're like, I get what you're saying. It all makes sense. Like, of course I want to be happy. Of course I have my own values. People have been telling me this forever, but where do I start? I feel so lost.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for them?
I think, checking in with yourself, like, and making that a habit, like every day. And sometimes it might not even be every day in the beginning. Sometimes it might be like 10 times a day. Like I try to check in with myself like multiple times a day whether I'm feeling good or whether I'm not feeling good. And so I think just starting that skill of doing that, of checking in on yourself, how are you feeling? And then what are you feeling? And then why are you feeling that way? Can really help you understand a little bit more about yourself, and put it on your calendar, like put it in a journal, and try to, like, I think that in of itself is a start, is just to change something about your lifestyle that you might not appreciate or that you think you might need a change or a break from.
Yeah, it's almost like this intentional act of, well, how are you? One, right? And then seeing whatever feeling or emotion may come up, and then potentially like, is there a judgment there? Is there resistance there? Is there acceptance there of like, oh, you're happy because you're having a good day, or oh, you're sad and I'm feeling bad about it. Well, why?
Totally. And like just introspecting. And I think like because we have so much going on constantly, like we're moving from place to place, we're meeting up with people, we're like doing our responsibilities, we have all these obligations. But I don't know like that many people that just will sit in silence for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And like, I think like doing meditations and all of that are so important, yoga and mindful practice, but just sitting in quiet for 30 minutes. So just like blocking out your calendar and saying, I'm just going to sit here for 30 minutes and whatever comes up, comes up. And I'm just going to sit there and be like more conscious of like the type of meditation that you're doing.
That would be so difficult for me. Just
it is, because all these thoughts like are. It's like I
Yeah.
can't do it either. Like it's really hard for me to do it too. It's almost like in my mind, it's like I have to like kind of send myself a notification in my head every day
Yeah.
to be like, how are you doing? Are you okay? Are you okay? And then like processing that. But that is hard to do. It takes work, and we don't even have time to do that.
Yeah, until it becomes a part of, I guess, who you are, right? I mean, even like self-affirmations, which I love. A few years ago, I definitely struggled with like, who am I and what am I? And, am I being a full being, And I used to listen to these videos that would just, somebody else would give me affirmation, that I would repeat it. And I felt like a crazy person. But every single day I wake up and, as I'm walking my dog, because I love moving meditations. That's kind of where I find like myself. And I'm like, I am so grateful that today is the best day of my life. Like I am so grateful that I get to wake up and I get to re-experience this life, and I get to make decisions that are in alignment with who I am,
Totally.
right? And it's created this huge sense of self and happiness, even for me, in the being of it, right?
Yeah.
Because I recognize that it's not just, yeah, sure, I have all of these beautiful things in my life, but those don't make me happy. It's the practice of those things, whether it's
Exactly.
cooking or waking up or like having a hot shower, you know?
Oh my gosh, like that is literally my go-to happy moment. Like literally, it's like, and everybody, like my husband knows it. If I'm like, like a little bit stressed or I've had a really bad day with like the kids, or I'm just like in a mood, I'm just like, shower. Like I need to go take a hot
Wow.
shower right now and I will calm down and I will like reset. And it's totally true because like the thing that is that like you expect, I think as you grow up, you've been told all these things that like, being in a big house is what you're supposed to do, and being married is what you're supposed to do, and having kids is what you're supposed to do. And that's not for everyone. That is a societal pressure that we are trying to live up to for whatever reason. So I think check-ins in the app, like that's a feature of the app, which I think is a really great way to start even building it, where you're like, I don't know where to start. Like, what can I do? And so the check-in, it does exactly that. Like, how are you feeling? Like, rate your day on a sliding scale. Then it talks about, what are you feeling exactly? And so it gives us these like emotions, right? Positive, negative, and neutral of like, how, like, are you frustrated? Are you disgusted? Are you calm? Are you blessed? Are you grateful? Like all these different ways. And then it like does a deeper dive of saying, well, why are you feeling that way? Is it like family? Is it friends? Is it work? Is it toxicity? Is it mindfulness? And you yourself can start to kind of build the habit or the skill to say, why am I feeling this way? And what can I do? And then the other thing is, it's that it's actually in all the small things. It's all in these small moments. Like I might have like a bad morning with somebody, but it's going back and finding that small piece of joy that I had in my day, and multiple times a day, right? To say it was a look that I shared with my daughter. Like a few nights ago, she was like throwing a tantrum and she was really upset. And I was like, I closed the door and I'm like, well, you're going to go to sleep. Like, this is done. Like, I can't be around you. If you're doing that, you need to calm down. And then I will come and help address the problem. And like, then I went in after to like repair with her, and she was just like peeking out with her little like eyes through her bunk bed slits. And I just like went like that on her level. And then I just like did like nosy kisses with her and started like singing one of our favorite songs, which was like the Because You Love Me from Celine Dion.
I love that so much.
And she just like, like that was our moment. Like that was my moment to be like, I've had a stressful day. I've had a long day. I'm exhausted. I've put so much work into like everything. But like that moment is what you focus on, and you focus on that good instead of all the bad stuff.
Yeah, because I imagine, being a parent is hard, right? And it probably tests your patience and just makes you question everything about yourself, right? And it's really easy for parents to just hang on to like being mad and being upset and like, well, I am having a stressful day and you're making it even worse.
Totally.
Versus just resetting and then putting even words to that, like having a moment with your daughter and just being able to express like, I'm frustrated. Let's reset. I'll be back. And like your daughter knows that.
Exactly. Like to be like, they like know to be like, well, she's taking space. And our thing, like we just talked about this week, like at our family meeting was like, just like everybody needs space. And so when you need space, you give them space. You don't keep like harping on it, because we all need those moments to recuperate. And when we come back, you find that you're better. We're better. We're able to have a conversation. And my daughters know, like, I'm like, I can't have a conversation with you when you're screaming. I cannot. And they're capable. They're young. They're 5 and 7, but they know how to like regulate. They know how to make themselves like better when they're upset, because they know I can color, I can look at the sky, I can look at nature, I can play with my stuffies, I can calm down. I know how to do that. And when I do, then we can have a conversation, and then that conversation goes better for everyone, because I'm able to like apologize for things that I've done wrong to them, and they're able to do the same thing for me. And it's a much more cohesive relationship and just a connected relationship.
It's so powerful. Like I wish I knew those things when I was young, right? Versus if I'm feeling a certain thing and then identifying with that feeling of sadness or anger or whatever it is, versus having a solution of, oh, I get to do all these other things that are actually make me happy.
Yeah.
It's powerful that you're able to teach them that.
I mean, I think we have to, I think it's really important to do that, because they're looking to us as like role models, and we don't get it right either. Like I mess up all the time, like with my kids, like, a lot of, people are like, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that, and that's so great. And they don't see like all the bad stuff. Like, when we post pictures and we do all of these things, my husband and I took our kids to India and Sri Lanka about 2 months ago.
Wow.
And they like, I was having a really stressful day because my daughter was like, had a high fever and she was like just screaming and kicking. And she was like, I don't want to take this medicine. Like, it tastes gross. And I'm like, I was so stressed. And I was like, and I wrote an article about it saying, we don't show everybody the bad stuff. You just show
Yeah.
everyone the good stuff. And it doesn't mean that the bad stuff doesn't happen and it's important for kids to know that too, like that we are human, we make mistakes, but we can apologize for
Yeah.
them. And that's teaching them how to show up so that when they make a mistake, like my daughter all the time today, I took the freeway and I missed the exit and I was like, oh man, I missed the exit. Like I'm going to be late. And she was like, it's okay, Mama, everyone makes mistakes. Like you just made a mistake. Just you get my husband and I do this thing where we're like, you get a recovery point. Like you make a mistake and instead of dwelling in the mistake
Yeah.
and feeling guilt and shame for the mistake, you recover and it's not about me as a person. I'm not going to personalize it. I'm just going to do better next time. And that's it. And you
Yeah.
move on and you continue with your day. Because
When I'm a parent, which I can't wait, I just want to be like you and your husband. Like,
no, trust me,
it's beautiful.
we have a lot of there are a lot of moments. And that's the thing. It's for me, like because I came from such a strong foundation of family, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be away with the girls and my husband and I are very different, but he balances me a lot and
Yeah.
I balance him, and we're working towards figuring out like what is good for our family and how to draw that line between me being super strict and being
Yeah.
like, nope, these are what you have to do. And I have high expectations because these are the values that I want you to learn because I want you to be successful. I want you to be a happy, healthy, like adjusted person.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to be coddled and, not know how to do anything.
Yeah.
But it's a process because they're kids and they're not supposed to know what they know at 5 and 7.
Right.
You
And
know?
things change, right? But what I like about the app too is you get to measure how you're feeling. You get to measure what's happening in your life, and then you get to manage it after, right?
Exactly. Because it gives you, what I love about the app is that it gives you insight and it gives
Yeah.
you data. Because for me, and like I'm a lawyer by trade, is I love data. I love looking at, well, this is what the facts say. Like the facts say that yesterday I was upset. It says that for a month I've been upset. Well, okay, what's going on with me? What's happening? And then that really forms a catalyst to say, let me check on my other emotions
Yeah.
and see how I'm doing in each of those, and then figure out how to move forward and whether I need to make a change.
Wow. What has been the most surprising discovery for you or your husband, even like since you've had the app and you've launched it, or whether it's like a partnership or something, even with your own emotions?
I think it's just how badly people want to be seen and heard.
Ugh.
I think people are really struggling to I think everyone we talk to, like, it's not a coincidence that we're having these conversations so much more. And this topic of mental health is coming up so much more
Yeah.
because our minds are not meant for this modern world with the technology that we have.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be constantly multitasking, and the increase in anxiety and the increase in mental health and the increase in exhaustion and burnout and all these obligations that are being placed on us. And we have to have the power to be able to say no to them. But it's hard because there's so much pressure to do otherwise. And so for
Yeah.
me, it's really just, it's like, for me, it's difficult in a way to hear that everyone is struggling, because like you don't want that in a community. You want to
Yeah.
be able to like help people and you want everybody to be that. But going even back to what you were saying about community in Germany and how like in America we have this very individualistic mindset. I think adopting a more like collective mindset, and that's where compassion really comes into, is like looking out for other people as well, because we're being constantly taught it's all about you. It's all about you. Like your feelings matter. You need to do self-care. You need all of these things. And it's true. Like you do need those things. But at the same time, you also need to be aware of the people around you and what they need, because like you have to fill your own tank, but you also have to like not be so individualistic that you're not you're not working towards some kind of sacrifice for
Yeah.
other people
Or
too.
being mindful, right, of the space that you take up, right?
Exactly.
Which is hard for some people as well,
Yeah,
right?
it's hard for all of us because we want it to be, we are struggling, right? So you
Yeah.
need that help. But like taking care of yourself and just having compassion for other people and doing that through empathy. Like, how is their day? Oh, and I did that with my daughter the other day where I'm like, I know I'm trying to empathize with how your day is. You're upset because of this and all this that happened. I'm trying to put myself in the mind of a 7-year-old who just wants like a cake pop from Starbucks, like that's like what she wants. And she wants to
Yeah.
spend time with me. And my attention was taken somewhere else, like
Yeah.
by work or by these things that we couldn't do. But I tell her and I tell my kids all the time, it is hard to be a mama. It is hard to be a parent. So that they know that they can learn how to empathize with me and say, I'm like, we have to pay bills. We have to do laundry. We have to restock the kitchen. We have to cook. We have to fill up all these things. You don't see those things. We have to make doctor's appointments. And for them to at least understand that that's what we do so they can create the empathy when they're having a tough day. And they can also do that because at the end of the day, we're a family, right? And we have to all look out for each other. It's not just about the individual.
Sure. Oh, that's so beautiful. I know you're a lawyer, but if you had one wish that you could just, use a magic wand for, what would you wish for?
Oh, just to realize that we're all just doing the best that we can and just understanding that everybody's trying to do the best that they can with the circumstances that they have, with the experiences that they have.
Yeah.
And I think that in of itself will hopefully create an open door and opportunity for more empathy with everyone else. Because I think when you have that empathy, it's easier to relate to people. When someone sees you and you feel seen and you feel heard, you're more likely to make sure the other person feels seen and heard too.
Yeah. Well, being open, right? Being empathetic, I think, and truly empathetic, not just, oh yeah, I get it.
Right.
Like, no. Like being empathetic to being more patient, right? Being a little bit more kind.
Totally.
Actually making eye contact with somebody, right? I always joke when you go to the gym,
Yeah.
everyone's looking down, but what if you just like put your phone away and you're walking through a gym or a grocery store and you're making eye contact with somebody
Exactly.
and just seeing them, like, I see you, I'm here, I get it.
Exactly. Like I'm in LA, we're driving around and, I noticed from like when I was little to now how much like when you let someone go in traffic and usually people put their hand up to either say thank you, right? And people don't do that anymore. They just go. Like I
do that every single
so
time.
do I. I like feel bad if I don't. I'm like, no,
yeah.
I have to say thank you. And my kids do it now. Like they're always like, putting their hands up. And it's like for me, I'm like, that's just even that small interaction of just being like saying thank you
Yeah.
it goes a long way to connect with someone else saying, I see you. Thanks for doing that for
Yeah.
me. And like you said, just my mom always has this thing where she, in a grocery store or wherever we go to like a retail, anywhere that's a physical, she loves like, she'll use the person's name and take like the person's name, the rep by their name and like ask them about their day and say, oh, and joke with them because they don't get those conversations anymore, and other people don't either because we're all so consumed with looking down at our phones.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of, I don't know, self-restraint, like for me to just be like, oh, I shouldn't be on my phone. Okay, like I'm going to put it away right now. I'm not going to pick up my phone for 20 minutes. I'm going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
If I have everything I need or I know what I need, I don't need to pick up my phone.
Yeah.
And it's that practice of when you don't have it to be like, oh, now what do I do?
And what comes up for you, and what feelings come up and what thoughts come up and even like fears, right? Or even I like to call, if I call like a customer service hotline or something or, whatever, Wi-Fi issues with billing or whatever. And it's like, if you just say like, oh, hey, like, how are you?
Yes.
It's so, I always love, like, it's so funny when it changes the entire conversation, changes the entire trajectory of like, oh, you're asking, like, you actually care. It's not just like, hey, what's up? Whatever.
Absolutely. It's like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And like, it totally does. It changes the trajectory and it makes people, like I said, I just feel the world is a lot closer than it is bigger.
Yeah.
And if we all just kind of did these like, and I don't think it's not intentional, right? We're just caught up. And so that's where like the mindfulness habit comes of just like, how do you instill it? So it's not like this term, it's just part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's part of your day to be kind and do like 10 kinds of acts of kindness for someone. And in the app, that's what I love too. Like we put like a random acts of kindness library. So it's like you can go do those things, and they usually take, like you said, smiling at someone. That's an act of happiness because that smile could have turned someone's entire day
Yeah.
around.
And it's the small changes that make a really big difference, right? It's not like the world's going to change just tomorrow because something big is going to happen. That may be, but
Right.
it's the interactions that you're having. It's the in-between moments that you're having that could truly reset your life and somebody else's, whether that's managing on the app, like how you're feeling or how you're doing, or journaling about that, or the questions that you get, right? That kind of prompt you of, okay, so today's over. Like, what am I most proud of?
Yeah.
You know, or like, what could have maybe gone better, right? And
Yeah.
just checking in with yourself,
Checking in
right?
with
It's ongoing
yourself
practice.
and seeing that. And I think like right now, what we're doing is really great. Like when, if if anyone works with like a therapist or a coach, it's actually like making those sessions a lot more productive for people. And I think it depends for everyone. Everyone goes to therapy for different reasons, right? But some, if you're really looking to make like that change, then it's like understanding like, what can I do? And if you're, we have this option now where you can work with a therapist and do like a check-in in between that week. Cause sometimes I need like a lot shorter of a time period to say, I need you. Like, I've had this day and I don't know what to do, or this is going really badly. What should I do? And then the therapist can kind of, get a check-in from this person, and there's AI detection software that detects the emotions that the client is actually feeling,
Wow.
to be able to say, oh, I think this person was really impacted by this situation. Let's talk about this in session, and really have more insight to help make those sessions a lot more productive.
So powerful. Because people, they want to be happy, right? At the end of the day, I feel like that's like, no, how do I find happiness? Like, how do I get there? How do I save myself, right? Or how am I like held by people? It's really interesting and powerful.
Yeah. And I think, I think we look at it like this emotion, like it's part of it's the gold standard of the emotion, is it's got happiness written on it, but it's more of like this state of, like just being, right? You said it's going through this flow of all of these externalities can be happening around me, but I can just be sitting and I cannot be disturbed or bothered.
Yeah.
And so for me, a lot of times it's sitting with something that I don't like if people talk about, a political issue that I'm really sensitive to, or that I'm really passionate about. It's sitting with someone else's point of view and not being bothered by it, and just accepting it and saying, okay, like I'm going to choose like empathy right now to be able to connect and relate to that person, to then have this feeling of, yeah, I'm not angry, because I could let my anger like dictate my entire day and say, oh, I'm like this about this. And I do that often. Like, I'm like, oh God, I'm so pissed off because this person doesn't believe this, and how can they do that? And I just want the world to be a better place, and that's why I'm doing it. And I make all these justifications for myself. But at the end of the day, it is within my control.
Yeah.
And that's what the app is trying to remind you, that you're in control of it. You get to choose what you want to do. You get to choose what matters to you and what you prioritize.
Yeah.
And that's what those that's the power that I think most people don't realize, because it's easier. I was telling my daughter today in the car, like it's easier to do the hard thing. It's easier to be negative. It's easier to say, I don't like this teacher. I don't like this person. I don't like, the way my friends are treating me. But it's harder to focus on that small moment of good.
If there's anything that we're taking away today, this is it. You're in control. You can do anything, right? Like you can just reset.
And like we can change. Like, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst? Nothing is like permanent. Everything changes. So at the worst, like take a chance. And it's scary to do that though.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I don't feel like doing that a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because it's easier to be safe.
Yeah.
It's easier to be comfortable.
But like, what would happen on the other side, right? Like every decision that you've made got you to this point.
Totally.
I think you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And if not, you'll figure it out.
Exactly. You have the ability to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like you are here. And I think it sort of like, for me at least, like it brings it back to a more philosophical approach and understanding like, why are we here? What is the point of all of this? Like, and to keep asking that why question and keep employing that like why philosophy of like, why am I doing this? Why did I do that? How can I be different? How can I change? Because it's hard to do all the things.
So many goodies. So as we're wrapping up,
Yeah.
I have some rapid fire questions
Okay.
for you that I wrote
Shoot.
down. We'll see.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
What life motto do you live by?
So this is a quote. I cannot steal it. It's a quote directly from my dad and his ingenuity. But it's the depth of your disappointment is directly proportional to the height of your expectations.
My mind is blown. Wow.
Yeah, it's hard not to have expectations.
It's so hard.
It's really hard. It's like anything. It's a practice. It's hard. You have to have them, but you realize how much of your expectations are then tied to your
Yes.
disappointment and how you're feeling after that. And so,
That almost makes me feel more free.
yeah, that if you let go of it, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like if I'm expecting to, like have my kids be like perfect and have them be like these like model citizens and they're not, like what's going to happen? How at the end of the day, what is going to change? Life will move on.
Mhm.
Like it will be okay. They will be
Yeah.
okay. They will figure it out. It's creating that detachment,
Mhm.
detachment from yourself and detachment from what you really value and like,
Your ego.
yeah, your ego. I
It's
know.
a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
What thing or action makes you instantly happy?
Taking a hot shower. You already answered that for me. Taking a hot shower. I would say the other thing is just like sitting in the sun.
Yeah.
Like sitting in sunshine or looking up at the clouds and the trees and just knowing that there's something bigger
Yeah.
than just me.
Yeah. What's on your bookshelf?
Become Anything by Michelle Obama because I love her. I have another book called The Train to Pakistan, which is about the Muslim and Hindu and Sikh riots that happened right after the division of India and Pakistan in 1947. And then Hunt Gather Parent, which is my go-to parenting guide.
So many goodies.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest influence on your life?
My parents, my family, like my
Yeah.
family in general, actually, I would say like, obviously like it's my parents cause they are the ones who raised me, but my brother, like my husband, my sister-in-law, like my kids, like I think my friends, like they all have the power to influence in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I think it's like you're the sum of like the five people closest to you, right? Like you do that, but as long as you maintain your own identity and understanding like what you want, and if it's different, not allow yourself to be influenced in those like ways.
Yeah.
But really just taking like influence and learning from everybody around you.
Yeah. I definitely get the vibe that everybody around you is very beautiful, and just like beautiful human beings, just who are really kind and loving. And
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
I'm very, very, very fortunate. And I'm very blessed and
Yeah.
lucky. I have some really, really just absolutely wonderful people in my life, and I'm
love
really
that.
grateful.
And the last question is, what did you want to be growing up?
I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a journalist or a writer. I loved creative writing. And so I am a lawyer, but then I turned into doing sales at Visa. I used to work at Visa. And then I took a break 2 years ago and started focusing on just being at home with my family and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And that led me straight into writing. I
Wow.
came back to that after all these years because writing is just therapeutic for me. It helps me process my emotions and how I'm feeling. And it helps me just like ask questions and create like dialogue like this. And I love asking questions. My brother would always make fun of me because he's like, you just ask all the time. You're like, why? It's so annoying. And it's just like, that's just part of my personality. I just love knowing more. Why?
Yeah.
And so this is just a great way for me to do that.
I love that. Me on like every first date, there was like, you're asking me a lot of like questions. And I was like, well, I'm just interested, I
Yeah.
just want to get to know you. But
Exactly.
I think it's so fun that you are or were really a lawyer, right? Practicing. And then now you're back to writing, because I think as a kid, we know what we're passionate about. We know what makes us happy, right? We know what fulfills us in the
Yeah.
day to day. And then we go through life and we start to kind of take these detours almost, right? That
Totally.
well, I think I should do this, and society tells me to do this, and I can get money here. And well, this person says that is more important. And then we route ourselves back, but then still kind of go back to our childlike innocence and what we
Totally.
used to really, love and resonate with. So,
Totally. And like I think there's so much like you can learn like just from children it's themselves because like I asked I was like asking my daughter this question because we are like constantly talking about like happiness or well-being in our family. I asked my daughter like what does it mean to be happy and she was just like dancing, sunlight, and spending quality time with my family. And my 7-year-old said this, and I was just like, yeah, that's it. Like that is like it sounds so simple,
yeah.
and you're right, we just get detoured with all of these other things, but just
Yeah.
I think holding some of what that core identity is so important in the back of our minds to
Yeah.
constantly remind us of who we are.
Yeah. And not get lost.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of this anchor, right?
Totally.
When life is life and
Yeah. And it's like you have all of these things. It's like just work and stress and kids and everything that's going on. And you just have to take a moment to pause and just
Yeah.
soak it all in.
Oh, beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. Well, as we wrap up, how can people find you and how can they like read everything that you're writing?
yeah. So I have a Substack account called Questions and Comments. So questioning like lifestyle, like parenting, and then just like social commentary. And so you can find me on Instagram at questions comments. And then for the app, download Happy because it's HPY. And there's so many awesome goodies. My husband's done such an amazing job, and it's really impressive to look at it.
Yeah.
Like it's really impressive when I look at this tool and I see how far it's come from its first evolution,
Yeah.
and to know that like there's been all these different tweaks he's done to kind of make it more intentional and make it
Yeah.
authentic to the users and how it's really now impacting people is really powerful.
Yeah.
So start with that and, download Happy. It's on Android and on the App Store as well.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for
Abs-
chatting
thank
about such important
you.
topics,
No, thank you. I feel like so honored and flattered to even do this because I'm not anybody special. I am not
Yes,
like
you
no,
are.
I mean I'm not, there's no pedigree, there's no certification, there's
Yeah.
nothing like and I think that's kind of like the fun part is just like, it just happens.
Yeah.
Like,
It's the everyday conversations and the topics that we all think about that just, again, organically just came about, right? Where I'm
Exactly.
like, this needs to happen. Like, we need to talk more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like we all need to talk more. Like I saw something the other day where it's like we don't ask our neighbors for sugar like anymore or a cup of sugar. We can Amazon that or
Yeah.
do that. So why would we do that? And so it's nice to like be able to just talk in person and
Yes.
connect with people face to face.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. And we'll catch you
Thank
next
you.
time on Everybody Hates LA.